Thank you, everyone. I just want to thank everyone for the invitation, and also I'm just really honored to be in community with Chuck and Wayne and with all of you today. I'm going to be doing two bifurcated readings from the book, one from the beginning and one from the middle. The book is about a young woman who becomes a new mother and starts to think about her own mother who disappeared when she was a young girl, and reflects on why her mother might have left, and goes on a journey to find her. Whenever Mother regaled us with fantastical tales of her exotic birthplace, bursting with the sultry equatorial heat, the mangrove's briny clutch, the sweetness of the rambutan, the sharp spiciness of fresh galangal, and the salty shrimp paste, Father brought my mind back to the Rockies, reminding me that I had never been to the beaches and rainforests of Brunei. Draped with shawls of coniferous trees strewn with silver rocks and capped with snowy barrettes, the mountains surrounded us in sparwood. We worked in them, played on them, and lived among them. We could never escape them. My father told me that the mountains reminded him only of work. He gazed sadly at the belly of the mountain where the coal mine was squinting, drawing on a cigarette. The mine's smokestacks, 4 of them crowning the mountain, resembled the cigarette perched between his lips, its ashes building like the coal waste pushed from the mountain's burning innards. Father spoke with such sullenness about working in the mine that I imagined the mountain casting a shadow on his face, like a ghost clinging to his stubble. To my mother, the mountains were the walls of a prison. They contracted like an accordion, teasing her by giving her space, and then rapidly closing. She grumbled that Father had promised her excitement and adventure in a modern city, that he hadn't thought of her when he brought her to this secluded town. It didn't help when I pointed out the sound of the trains echoing in the valley. "Nobody knows we are here. I can't die here," she would vow. "Nobody knew you lived in the Sultanate of Brunei before either," Father reminded her. "It's better to die here than rot in the heat back home." It was as if they were pollen that was lifted by the wind and landed in this place where the air quieted, unplanned, unprepared, planting themselves in the soil they did not choose. So I'm just reading another portion at the back end of the book when the main character goes to Southeast Asia to try to find out where her mother is. Nestled between the limestone mountains was the town of Ipoh. Although its glory days of the boom from the tin mines were behind it, the city was still charming. Settled in the urban valley were low buildings with a colonial touch, their age betraying them. The windows of the buildings looked bruised and battered, their wooden shutters faded and warped from the heat. I imagined a shiny and vibrant array of colors among the buildings in Ipoh's heyday. The various gowns each building had donned, now revealed through layers of paint that flecked off the edifices because of the monsoon rains, revealing old and older hues from a different time. Money from the tin mines, as well as the members of the Hakka Miners Club, had long fled. I wondered if there had been another girl like me who had looked out the back window of her car, saying goodbye to her hometown when her father lost his job at the mine. During her childhood among the Pink Mountains, did she know Ipoh was in danger of becoming a ghost town? The next day I found myself wandering in the old town of Ipoh. The colonial buildings flanking the Pink Mountains reminded me of the forlorn Pink Motel in Michelle, the ghost town on the outskirts of Sparwood. I found a kopitiam Sin Yun Long and found a seat under the whirring ceiling fan to wait for my breakfast and checked my WhatsApp messages. Nothing. As I dove into my second cup of white coffee, I realized this was one of the rare moments I was alone on this trip. I loved the silence within me amid the chaos of loud voices, cups kissing saucers, and motorbikes and cars honking outside. I was so tired. More than the traveling, it was because of the careful conversations I have had to have with family about the past, the unruly emotions I had to wrestle with in response to the discoveries and non-discoveries, all while repeating the unending cycle of diaper changes, feeding, and coaxing Liew into naps. John and I discussed the possibility that I was experiencing postpartum depression, but in my heart, I felt the heaviness was more than that. Ever since Liew was born, I had felt my mother's presence everywhere, like her essence was a heavy cape wrapped around my neck, dragging me down. I couldn't stop thinking about her. She came into my dreams, often appearing as a beautiful, murky figure from my childhood, only to transform into a vampire-like creature with long, black hair. It was these compounding, overlapping, and troubling feelings about mother that led me to this kopitiam. I had to find her, even if I was not sure I could forgive her. I was going to follow my strongest lead and dive into the most enduring relationship that mother had not eviscerated. I stood up to greet Che Eng, my mother's best friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia, for asking that thoughtful question. So I played along a lot with the different kinds of ways that words appear on the page in the book, and to be blunt, I picked the Chinese script as a way to interrogate and interrupt English speech, because I feel like English is a colonizing language for many of us in the diaspora, and that many of us have lost our language because of this colonizing power. And so I have these creeps, like these kind of reminders in every subject or section header, just to kind of remind us that of what we might have lost, of what we can gain, of what we still have. And the choice of using the Chinese radical and the traditional script is very political, I would say. I try to give weight and significance to the democratic aspirations of people in Hong Kong, to those that are fighting human rights in China, and it's a nod to their efforts and also to the longevity of our language and our culture, that there was a script that has endured centuries. And so, those tiny characters in every subject or every chapter heading play a really significant role for me. They represent what we've lost in colonization, what we have yet to gain by continuing to learn our language, and is a little bit of a move of resistance on my part to support the political movements that we are continually struggling through as a community.
Wow.
I invite you to look at the back of my book, and there are 4 wonderful women who gave me a really nice blurb for my book, but I approached them because I really admire their work, and they are Catherine Hernandez, the author of Scarborough, Carrie Ann Leung, author of The Wondrous Wu, Jenny Haejun Wills, author of Older Sister, Not Necessarily Related, and Lindsay Wong, author of The Woo Woo, How I Survived Ice Hockey, Drug Raids, Demons, and My Crazy Chinese Family. And so 2 of these authors wrote nonfiction, 2 wrote fiction, and I really admire these women, not just for their writing, but for their boldness, for their bravery, and for the fact that they are, collegial, wonderful Asian women that are really kicking ass in the world right now, and I'm proud to be among their community. And so really, I read their work, admired it, and I'm just thrilled that they agreed to give me a blurb on the book. And I would just say that I wholeheartedly encourage you to also, if you haven't already, get acquainted with their work. I have a lot to say about this. I mean, my bread and butter is about criticizing the government on its immigration law and policy. I can spend hours talking about this, frankly, but I'll just say this. I think that, law and public discourse play a huge role in how people experience belonging, how people experience community, how people are treated. It is very tiring to constantly tell people that you're born in Canada or that you've been here for X number of years. And I think, I've written at length about the fact that race is, the underlying factor in terms of how law is shaped, how people talk about people, and who feels like they're kin or community members. And I think, we're coming out of a pandemic where it became extremely stark for people, their daily experience, as Fiona captured, even here in Chinatown. It has not diminished, it has not gone away. And for someone like me who grew up watching my parents go through a lot of racism, I grew up thinking it's because my parents have an accent. It's because we were living at this time. And I thought I would escape that, and I can honestly say that I haven't. And for me to sit here in 2022 and face the same kinds of issues about race, to watch my colleagues who wear hijabs or who practice the Muslim faith, experience violence on a daily basis at work or in public, it's a disturbing time. And so I would just say that I think we all, need to be aware of that. We need to be brave. We need to speak out. And I really admire the people that are doing that work. And, if you end up following me on social media and things like that, I hope you don't tire from my criticisms and my constant rants, because I think it needs to be said and it's not said enough. And that, I find solace in communities like this where we can gather and speak openly about these things. Anyways, I'm getting ranty now, but I just want to say that there's a lot of room for improvement, and that I see a lot of important work happening in various communities, and I applaud that. And Chuck talked about the fact that we've known each other for a few months now, not knowing that we were going to be sitting on this panel together. Chuck's doing important work in the community. We're talking about how, people coming from Hong Kong are treated differently in the immigration system than other people. It's the little things that we do, and the kinds of community work that we do behind our public facades, you know what I mean? And so I really take solace in all of these small efforts and these relations that we have. So anyways.